So we're up to step 3 in our practice test, creating controllers and views and so on and so forth. So, I could just show you the code because I have already gone through it, but I think it might be helpful to kind of walk through the process a little bit, just as a step-by-step review. So, as I said, I already have the controllers, so I'm going to add additional ones that will be identical except for they don't have the finishing touches done yet, right? So when I come in here, remember this won't be quite normal because I already have one. But if I come in here and pick wine, oh, so because I already have a wine controller, it says wines 1, but that's okay. I'm just going to delete this one when I'm done. Okay. So just working through the process of scaffolding. All right. So this duplicate here of the finished version, I'm just going to go through the process of what I normally do because once you do this a few times, it gets a lot quicker. So this is kind of a step by step. So the first thing I mentioned before, I hate the fact that it doesn't have a good name. If there's any include at all, then instead of just doing it all in the return view, it creates a query with the name of the context, which just makes no sense to me at all. So just change that to wines. And of course, down here, use that link query, right, with a .toList async. There we go. So that's the first little thing I fix. Okay, details is fine. I'm not going to worry about it. Here we are to create. So, all right, so here's my select list for my foreign key, right? So what I might do is I might start off, well, it's almost better to do it with the next one because it actually has the extra argument to go ahead and grab the, just going to copy that. Has the argument for the existing value. So I'm going to create my populate drop-down lists. And wine, right? Oop, swine. Isn't that funny? One letter, hey? That's all it takes to totally change the meaning of something. Okay, so of course it's going to complain, but I can actually get a head start here on generating this method, populate drop-down lists. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the code that I just grabbed there, throw it in, right? It gives me something to start with, and then I want to modify things. So wine, okay? Well, that's good, but I want to set a default, remember, equals null, so we don't have to pass in a wine. So I could rearrange this into multiple steps, but to do it quickly, I'll just come here. So wine types, right? Then I'll add my order by. W goes to W dot wine type name. So it's alphabetically in the list, right? And then here's my wine. Now I just have to put the Elvis operator in case it's null. And that's it. So that makes my populate drop-down list. So what I'll do is I'll just delete this now. Could have just cut it earlier, I guess, right? And then I'm going to copy this one and use it to replace that same command throughout, right? I guess I could do a search and replace here, but that's just too efficient, right? Can't be too efficient, or, well, I guess I could be too efficient, but you get the idea. Okay, so there should be 4 occurrences of that in total, right? The get and the post for both edit and create, right? So here's another one to delete. Oh, gotta be careful. Only delete the right thing. And of course, this one will be a little different because when we're initially creating, there is no predefined value. So we just don't pass a wine. All right, that's good. So there we go. That is the next thing I would usually do is consolidate my populate drop-down list. So I just have it in one place. So there should be 4, okay, occurrences of that. And the other thing is I usually move this to the end, right? It's not critical, but I usually just put my new methods I've added just to keep them separate from the scaffolded ones themselves. There we go. So let's go back up here and review what we've done so far. As we just changed this name of this link query, right? We've just updated our popular drop-down lists. Okay, now let's come to actually the try catches. All of our posts do require a try catch, right? So it's pretty straightforward here. Okay, try, tab, tab, and basically move the entire if structure about validation and all the work we do, if it is valid, put that into the try. Now the catch in this case, of course, we know we actually have a unique constraint, right? So I'm usually doing this with a copy open in parallel of an older example, right? I've got the job bank one open here, so I'm going to grab the catch block. Just pick one somewhere where you're looking for a violation of a unique constraint, right? And just be careful, of course, because you need to change the names. I grabbed it out of the postings or position or something like that, right? So I have to change the message here so that it matches the wine that I'm actually working with. So remember, you cannot have duplicate wine name and year, something like that, right? Okay. So that takes care of that. So that's basically everything I need to change in the create, right? Now edit. Edit is fine for the get. Come down here to the post. So this is one that takes more work. What I've started to do typically is I usually just end it there and throw a couple of slashes in to make that commented out because I can use these when I go to fix things, right? Now we no longer have this test anymore. I'll just get rid of it. And you know what? The quickest and easiest thing to do is come up to details. Details pretty much has usually the link query that you really want, as well as a test to see if you get a wine back. So I'll copy it and steal it here out of details, come down to my edit post, and that'll be the first thing I do here, right? The only difference is I'm going to change the name here to make it clear that this is a record I'm going to update, right? So my wine to update, then I check if that's null and return not found. Bada bing, right? That's nice and quick. So here I want to replace this if. I don't want to just check for validity. I'm going to check for, I'm going to use try update model to do both things, to check for validity and at the same time update the actual record I brought from the database with the values that were entered in the form. So I'll just grab again this kind of code out of my other example I'm working with and just make the changes necessary here. So wine to update instead of posting to update, and of course change the class to wine. And of course now I have all these that don't actually fit, but you know what? Hey, I've got this handy reference right here. So wine name, wine year. I never change the ID as the primary key, so I can skip that one. Wine price, wine harvest, and I've run out, so I'll just do my own. Now, if you want to change the D's to W's, it doesn't really matter. It's up to you, right? Oop. Ah, decimal. I don't want decimal. Wine type ID. Okay, so that's the last one that I needed. So I have everything in there, right, that I'm going to update all those fields. Okay, so, oh, actually, I don't even need that line of code, so I'll just take that one out, right? We call our save changes because we've already updated it, right? So we don't need to call update on it. So we just call save changes, but don't forget this. We always want to move this return back to the index. That shouldn't be there. It should really be up here inside the try block. Okay, so wine to update. Just change that in all these references. I can leave the concurrency exception alone, but of course on an edit, just like a create, we have to worry about the unique constraint. So now that I fix this, I can just copy it, bring it down after the catch for concurrency inside the edit post, and paste it in. Bada bing, bada boom. That's it. I'm almost done now, right? Delete, come to the post. Right after we go and we get the record, add our try block, right? Everything inside here goes inside the try. Now, if this was a parent and there were other records that had referential integrity constraint related back to it, then we would check for things like a foreign key constraint. There's no reason why we can't delete a wine. There's no referential integrity constraints in the system to do so. So really, there's really not much to do here, but add a model error, right? And it should be a DB update exception. Oh, update exception. But we don't need to access it, so I don't need to throw in one of those. And I could just steal one of these generic comments, okay? And I'll modify it. Come down. So we just add the model error in case of delete. Unable to delete wine. Try again. Okay. And of course it's going to complain until we return. So we better return something. Return view. And we'll pass our wine object so that it actually gets our model error to show on the screen. And it's a change, right? Kind of reviewing here. That's a change from the approach in our textbook tutorial where he passes a message back to the get and so on and so forth. But I'm just using the built-in model error approach that we've used for edit and create, right? Now to show that error message then on the screen, first thing I usually do then is as soon as I'm done in the controller, come down to the views, right? Remember I'm working with the wines one. I start at the top, open the create, because I need to grab this, right? Our delete doesn't have a validation summary. So I can just take the line out of the create. I usually put it under the horizontal rule. And here we've added a validation summary to delete. Okay, going back up here. It's just, all the pages tend to look so much the same. I like to be specific with a few words on the screen to remind people list of wines, right? And then I'm just going to make that change in each of the pages, okay, on that link to return back to list of wines, right? So that's the create taking care of the delete, oh, except for one thing, but we'll come back to that. Details, just change that same reference, that link, back to list of wines. And of course, on the index itself, why not have it say list of wines? There we go. So that's all the basic things except for one. In create, remember this, right? Our drop-down list. We want to force them, it's good practice to make sure the user actually modifies the selection for the foreign key. They don't just take the default that's going to be there without thinking about it. So we can easily do that by adding a option. So we come in between the opening and closing select tags, add our own option. Oh, don't forget we have to have value equals. Otherwise, it doesn't give us a null. And we can say select the type of wine. Something like that. Okay. Now, that's good, but we don't have anywhere to show the error message, so we'll grab one of these spans for validation 4, and just make sure the 4 is wine type ID. There we go. Take out that extra blank line. All right, so that's it. So I'm done on all the views. Okay, so that's basically the process. So I'd do the same kind of thing if I was going to do the wine type controller. The only thing, of course, is down here, I have very simple catch blocks because there's no unique constraints to worry about. There's really nothing I can anticipate for why I can't create or edit a wine type. The difference here is down in the delete, right? So in my delete confirmed, I have to worry about a foreign key constraint, right? So that's the main difference between the two controllers, the parent and the child controller. So that's basically it for the controllers and views, right? The only thing left then would be the sorting and filtering, right? If I come back to the instructions here, right? Yep, so we have all our air handling in place for everything and the wine type, the deleting, and so on. So sorting and filtering, right? Adding that to the index view. Maybe I'll stop and start